Yes, people, welcome back to Arsenal Midweek Peek on the Arsenal Lounge. Therapy session, people. But before we get into it, let's smash the intro.
Thomas, it's up for grabs now! Thomas!
Magic ball from Bergkamp to Patrick Vieira!
Oh, would you believe it? Oh, right, what a way to get it!
Fabulous solo goal by Thierry Henry. Champions.
Yes, people, welcome back. Happy Wednesday, hopefully, for the Arsenal community. But yeah, smash the like button as usual and get the Arsenal Lounge over 17k and above, people. But I haven't got Tom for long. But Tom, it's good to see you. I've seen you quite recently, but it's not the point. But it's good to see you anyway.
Yeah, you too, mate. Yeah, good. I'm so glad it's over, mate. I'm so glad it's over. It's closed.
Yeah, no, you're right, Tom. I agree. I any transfer window, particularly January, I'm like, you know what, it's done. So people, if you're unaware, which you shouldn't be, it's the 1st of February today. So transfer window is done until the summer. But big up to people in the chat already. Thank you for joining and saying hello. So Tom, let's get into it. I'm glad I got you on because the transfer window is done. I know you've been a busy guy, so I'm gonna crack on. I mean, the first question to ask you really, take it back to the 1st of January. Arsenal was 7 points top. Arsenal 7 points clear at the time from Man City. Realistically, and this question has been asked of me at the time, and how many players do you think Arsenal would get in during the January transfer window?
At the start,
yeah.
At the start, 2. After Mudryk, 1. So I'm surprised we got 3. So yeah.
No, it's I realistically thought 2 at the start. But then obviously I was a bit I was panicking probably because I think it was about 15, 16 days in. We hadn't bought anybody. So there were a lot of twitchy fingers and it's like, come on, we can't repeat the same as last January and not get anybody in, particularly things have moved on with Arsenal where we're a pleasant team to watch again and the football's good and we're top of the league. But I thought realistically 2 would come in. I was pleased we got left-sided centre-back in. Now, people said we had adequate cover defensive. I'm like, no, because I think personally, Gabriel's played too many games this season. Okay. I know he hasn't hardly missed any, actually, to be fair. So I was pleased to see, is it Kivior? Is it Tom Kivior?
Kivior,
yeah, beautiful. Yeah, so I'm glad to see a left-sided centre-back because they're a dime a dozen, apparently. And obviously, we got a wide forward. I didn't think we would get a traditional number 9. So I said to Arsenal fans, look, that's not going to happen. So get that out of your head. Stop tweeting. Stop going on Instagram posts. We're not getting a main man in terms of a striker. But sort of halfway through, Tom, we hadn't bought anyone. You probably answered it. And I think I actually asked you on your channel. You said you was quite worried. Yeah. How was you at that point?
Yeah, I was worried. After we missed out on Mudryk, I was thinking it's taken us more than 2 weeks because it started before the window opened, negotiating with Shakhtar, trying to get a deal done with Shakhtar. And we aren't the quickest. And that is my criticism at the end of the window, is that we aren't the quickest in negotiations. And I think we need to be faster, more ruthless. I think we need to be more aggressive with our bidding. And people will say, well, we were very aggressive with Caicedo, but we also need to be smarter because Caicedo, for instance, wasn't available and we've gone in with 2 bids. We've pissed off, Brighton. And it wasn't the way forwards in that position. We could have maybe invested that time better had we have realised the situation and how, it wasn't going to change from a Brighton perspective. And I was really concerned as to us not being able to get in the players that we needed. Of course, we pivoted very quickly to Trossard, which was impressive. I really liked that, how fast we moved for him. And then again, another window, another surprise signing out of absolutely nowhere in Jakub Kivior, who does add strength in depth, that left centre-back position, and maybe even in defensive midfield because he's played there as well. So, yeah, that's good. And then we ended it, I know, in mixed terms because obviously we were really excited about Caicedo, but I am happy with Jorginho. And I think he will be an asset between now and the end of the season.
We'll come on to Mr. Jorginho because he obviously, a lot of Arsenal fans had very different thoughts and feelings at the time when the tweets broke. But so back to Trossard, Tom. I mean, I was surprised, to be honest, by the reaction of some of our fans. And I say that even more so because, believe it or not, Arsenal community in the chat and Tom and other people watching this, we've bought from Brighton before. But
Yeah.
even then, that didn't go down particularly very, very well. I know you did a phone-in show. Was you surprised with like your journalistic head on, and as an Arsenal fan, the reaction to Trossard?
Yeah, maybe I was a little bit surprised at how underwhelmed some people were by it.
Yeah.
Because this is someone that when I've done the transfer shows, people have been saying that we should be signing. Like people saying, well, we need someone now. We need to give us an immediate impact. And that's exactly what he is. Like for me, he was if you're not going to get Mudryk in a title winning or title challenging season, I hope it's title winning, in a title challenging season, Trossard is the perfect forward to add to that forward line because he's versatile. He's experienced. He's proven himself in the Premier League against big sides that he scored against. Comes in and plays against Man City. He's arguably the best player on the pitch for Arsenal. And yeah, I didn't really get. To be honest, Albert, some people just like to moan. Like you can't. That is how it goes. Some people just want to moan. Some people are never happy. And we could have got Mudryk. People would have said we would have overspent on him. So I'm very happy with it. I think it's a great move, a great pivot, and I think he'll be an asset. Between now and hopefully what turns out to be a title-winning campaign. Yeah,
Tom, talking of the moaning, because obviously we're quite used to hearing it from our fan base. Actually, Casey mentioned it yesterday on the transfer show. He said it wouldn't be Arsenal fans if he wasn't moaning about something, which was quite funny, actually. He looks sharp as usual. He looks sharp as usual, Kerry Cab. Honestly, love him to pieces. But with the Trossard thing, I mean, I actually got onto your show that day, and I shouldn't be surprised by actually some of the reactions of Arsenal fans, if I'm honest, because I thought, this guy's not in his mid-30s. He's in the peak of his powers in his career. Yep. And it's not like it's a player that Arsenal fans will go, oh, you know what, why are we buying somebody we don't know and there's no track record? This guy has been within our vicinity. We've looked at him. We've seen him. We've seen him bag a hat-trick at Anfield. He's been very productive on the Brighton side, before De Zerbi and probably a little bit after. But so I was a bit surprised by the reaction, really. And actually, he's had a little, even the little periods he's had at the club, Trossard, with the cameo appearance against United and the other day in the cup. He actually showed some good promise. So I'm hoping Arsenal fans might take a little bit of what's that key word beginning with a P? Positivity from what they've seen with him. Trossard will be an asset, and I think he's probably a Mikel Arteta player, to be honest, as well. Listen, he'll be a very good addition. Kivior, I'll have to do my homework, but Tom, what have you heard about him prior to hearing that we bought him, should I say?
Nothing.
Nothing at all. Actually, zero, nothing.
I didn't know anything about him. In fairness, I know that a few years ago I came across as kind of like a European hipster football expert sort of thing, But ever since having to work specifically on Arsenal for both my job and the YouTube, my knowledge of European football has diminished because I'm not able to just invest as much time as I used to. And to be honest, even back then it was mainly La Liga, so I would have still needed the education on him. But obviously, when a player gets linked or is very close to signing, I like to invest half a day or so in looking through, going through Wisecout, looking at his stats, seeing what experts are saying, speak to experts who do watch him and see what they say. And I don't hear anything bad at all. I haven't heard a single drawback on the guy so far. Other than the fact he's young still. It's kind of the only really thing, and he still needs to develop in certain areas that are very normal for a 22-year-old. He's not slow for a defender. He's a good distributor. In fact, that was one of his strengths. His long passing is very good. He's been playing in 2 limited teams at Spezia and Poland. And so it seems like it's a really smart piece of business that they've looked at through the analysis. The problem is, and it's something I'm keen to get Arteta's thoughts on, is when we keep signing kind of these young backups. And we've done it with Fabio Vieira to Odegaard, and now we've done it with Kivior to Gabriel. And players that are 20, 21, 22, they need to play. They need to play to get better and to develop and to improve. And I have a worry that what we saw with Lokonga, who was a young guy when he came in, looked good when he started because he was playing loads of minutes. and obviously has trailed off and arguably got worse since we first started. He's I haven't seen anywhere near a good performance from him as I saw when he was first playing week in, week out when we signed him in 2021. And I worry that will happen with Fabio Vieira. And I have a worry that will happen with Kivior, because obviously they're not necessarily playing as much. Now, the way you get around that is that you start rotating. And if you're blitzing teams like Man City have done when you're winning 3-4, 5-0 regularly, and we're not doing that this season, we're playing very, very well, but we're winning most of our games by 1 or 2 goals. It's very rarely we've done that by more than 1 or 2 goals. And so we haven't had the luxury to be able to bring on more left field options with 30 minutes to go. Instead, we're bringing them on with 10 minutes to go or 5 minutes to go because we aren't trusting them yet. And of course, we got knocked out of the FA Cup pretty early on. We've brought these players in after the Europa League group stages. And of course, we're going to be playing Champions League football next season, touch wood. So I don't see any reason why we shouldn't be. So I do worry about that side of things. It fits the profile, it fits the strategy. But those players at that age, they need to play. And that's the question I have. But I'd be curious, and maybe I'll get a chance to ask Arteta on Friday in his press conference. So we'll see.
Yeah, Tom, make sure you do ask him that.
It's on my list, yeah.
But no, you know what it is? Because when it comes to players that we don't really know about and that are going to come to join people's respective clubs, but obviously us as Arsenal fans, I know people kind of say, oh, you know what, you can't go by like YouTube highlights and whatever, but I kind of counteract that, Tom, in the sense that because of technology and the ability to look things up, it's a good thing we do have it, because we have a player, but no one will know anything about him. But from seeing the bits that I've seen of Kivior, boy, that boy can pass, man. Jesus Christ. I mean, I was like, I think him and Ben might be having competitions so you can hit the best diagonals. Yeah, he looks, from what I've seen extensively, listen, if he can replicate that in an Arsenal shirt, Arsenal fans won't be complaining how much he paid for him, I can tell you that. So big up to Jaco Kivior, man. We're looking forward to seeing you in the at the red carpet. But so, Tom, with the guys that have gone out, we obviously knew that Cedric in terms of Fulham, and that's happened. Marquinhos has gone on loan to Norwich. Hopefully, he does very, very well there. But the main one is obviously Sambi Lokonga. I'm not surprised he's gone out on loan, but I thought it would have happened a lot sooner. But I mean, maybe Arteta has taken a sort of a reset and thought, actually, you know what? I probably don't trust him to bring him into the team on a regular, in the first team on a regular basis. So he needs time out. Did you see this one coming in going to Palace?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think it's a shock that he's gone. I think it's just a bit disappointing. Maybe not disappointing. Maybe that's too harsh. I'm a little bit concerned that we are thin in midfield. Because if you think about it, before we signed Jorginho, Arteta said, I want a midfielder. We've signed a midfielder and we've let one go. So we haven't actually, we haven't added, we are on the same number of midfielders. I know they're playing different positions, but we are on the same number of midfielders. And in terms of backups to Xhaka, you got Smith Rowe and Vieira, who are not, eights by design. They are players that, from their versatile nature, can play there. So I am a little bit thin. Do you not think we're a bit thin with him gone?
That's the thing. Like the Sambi thing. I mean, I'll be honest. I haven't been impressed with what I've seen. I think he's been here long enough to have shown a lot more. But
if I'd have asked you what you thought of Lokonga, and say I'm going to ask you to have to ignore kind of all the latest things we've seen. But if I'd have asked you in, say, end of November of 2021, and I'd have said, what do you think about Lokonga? What do you think he's going to be for Arsenal, having played consistently? What do you think you would have said then, trying to ignore what we've seen since that point?
Because you know what I've seen of him in flashes, there's been some isolated games he's really, really played well, but that's been very few and far between. Yes, I tailor that to the fact that he's not had a lot of game time, but I think, what game was it, Tom? I think it might have been. I'm sure it's a Europa League game. It might not have been, where he tried to play him in a different position, and he didn't come out of that game with flying colours. And I get it. You're playing in a position where you've been given an alternative role in terms of a midfield play, but you didn't really step up in that aspect as well. So it's a difficult question to answer, but it's kind of what I'll go back to what I said before. I did think he would go out on loan
at
the start of the season, and it didn't happen because obviously, Tom, this is what bugs me. Sorry to go away from I think I've answered what you asked me, but what is it with Arsenal when it seems to be an issue? I'm going to ask you another question in terms of like our number one targets, but that can come back a bit later. But in terms of the midfield area, it's not that we haven't identified that's an issue of ours over a number of years, but we seem to fail to bring people in that area, and I don't know what it is.
No, it's strange, isn't it? Because we signed Partey in 2020, and I remember being buzzing about that because I was like, we've waited so long for a midfielder, so long. We've brought in, Xhaka's turned out to be pretty darn good in the end. We finally worked out how to use Xhaka in the right way. It's taken 7 odd years, but we've done it. And it's Arteta that's done it. But outside of Partey and Xhaka, you look at the midfielders that we've signed. I mean, if I usually have on a quick link on a hotkey, I have Arsenal's all transfers we've ever signed. I can get it up in space of 2 seconds. And have, you think about Dani Ceballos more recently. You think about Lucas Torreira, never really ended up making it. Matteo Guendouzi, and he looked a real talent at first, but obviously things happened. You think about who else have we brought in? Mohamed El Neni, never really reached that kind of levels. Good servant, never kind of reached that kind of level. Christian Bielik we signed to be a talent, never played for us. And then I'm as far back as 2013, and we're talking about Kim Kallstrom. So and Matthew Flamini on a free transfer. We never really.
No, we don't.
No, we don't. You're right. We don't really go big on a midfielder when that is arguably the most important part of a team that wants to be up there with the best. If you've got a good midfield, you're on it. But up until we signed Partey, we just weren't really doing that. Since Partey, and I'm looking at mainly the 6 and the 8, I'm not really looking at the 10 because obviously Ozil, Cazorla, Ødegaard now, Fabio Vieira now. We've made some stuff in the creative midfield sense. Great, good stuff. Don't really have too many complaints about that. But it's the deeper midfield positions that I'm like, why aren't we going big? After Partey, the only one we brought in is Lokonga. Obviously, we've now brought in Jorginho. Some people would make arguments that Zinchenko can play there, but he never has for us. And that is it. Dani Ceballos was the other one, obviously, but he didn't really cut it. So it's clearly because they are looking meticulously for that type of player, and they feel as though they're only going to go big when they've identified the type of player that they believe is the one. And they did that with Caicedo, couldn't get him. They want that with Declan Rice, we hope, in the summer. Let's see. I tell you what, if we've won the title and we can't sign him, I start asking some real questions. Because, you can't not be getting your priority target as title winners. So we have to go and get Rice in the summer. That is a minimum expectation if he's the priority. So it is a good question to ask. It's a viable question to ask because we should be looking at that area as something to really go for. But maybe we'll see that with the guy we brought in now for the short term at least.
Yes, people, Arsenal fans, you might not believe this or not, but sometimes in life, and hopefully Tom, you believe this as well, good things come to those who wait for hopefully not to wait too long.
There's one fan that needs that. It's an Arsenal fan.
You're right. So Tom, yes, let's go on to our last signing in the window. Right, let me give you my 2 pennies before I get yours. So I remember seeing the tweet from Ornstein. I won't say 20 to 7, 6:38 p.m. to be precise. And I saw Jorginho. I thought, hey, I don't get underwhelmed very often, if I'm being honest. And that sounds really disrespectful to a player that's done well since he come over to this league. Let's have it right. But I think the issue that some Arsenal fans had, I'm going to say some because I don't speak for all of them because they're very vocal on the platform. They can speak for themselves. But he's 31. His contract runs out in the summer. I'm assuming he's surplus the requirements at Chelsea. He's not going to play a lot.
Apparently, he started 15 games. Strange, isn't it?
So, Tom, whatever intel you knew or didn't know, but just as a fan, firstly, because I'm going to ask you sort of the question in 2 parts. What was your first initial thought when you heard the links come through?
So the only thing I knew is that Arteta loved the guy.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I know. I didn't know we were going for him. I didn't know we were in for him still. I didn't know anything about that. All I knew is that he's a player that Arteta really likes. And there's a fair few of those out there, to be fair, that we've not signed. So when I saw the link, I genuinely thought someone had retweeted David Ornstein's tweet from 2020 when we were first, when it came up during the Our Partey saga that we had an interest in. I genuinely thought that was what had happened.
Yeah.
And then I thought it was a fake account. I was like, it has to be a fake. But obviously I checked it all. And then obviously it's popping up everywhere. Fab's tweeting it and Charles is tweeting it. And I'm speaking to Kaya and he's telling me about it.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't know if you saw it. I tweeted the GIF of Friends where Ross is speaking in the lecture hall in a British accent. And then they find him and he's doing it. And he's like, oh, bloody hell. That's how I felt. I felt in that moment like, oh, and not in the sense that I don't rate Jorginho, but in the sense that, oh, here we go. In the sense that, oh, we're about to see one of the biggest meltdowns in Arsenal transfer social history. Yeah. You are about to see people lose their head at this tonight, specifically on the 30th, not the 31st. That evening, you were going to see one of the biggest meltdowns we've seen on Arsenal social, and we did see that. I'm so glad that it happened the day before deadline day, that it came out the day before deadline day, because I feel as though
the day makes a difference. It does, trust me.
The night is really key. Sleeping on it is really key. If that had happened on deadline day, I don't think people would be as positive as they are about it now. And I include myself in that. I think because we got a night to kind of sleep on it, I think that helped. And it sounds really strange to say that talking about Arsenal transfers, but genuinely having a night to sleep on it really helped me contextualize it. And then when I found out that it was an 18-month contract with an option, I was like, oh, these guys are learning. They're learning. Because this isn't Willian on a 3-year deal. This isn't David Luiz on a 2+1 with an extra extension that we do. This isn't Petr Cech. This isn't Yossi Benayoun on loan. This is different. This is Arteta signing someone that he's always wanted because he's the next best option, because the players that we want to spend the big bucks on just aren't there for us in this window. Yeah. This is a guy that in a Premier League title challenge has been starting regularly this season. He's not been Petr Cech sitting on the bench behind Thibaut Courtois. He's not been sitting behind the starting wingers at Chelsea that Willian was. I know that Willian started a fair few games, to be fair still, but, was being forced out at that point. This is someone that started the 15 games for Chelsea in the Premier League this season, that's won everything, that is coming to other than the Europa League, which who knows, we might help him get. Although no, he must have won the Europa League because Chelsea won. Did he play in that game?
They would have. He's been there 5 years. He was there 5 years, wasn't he? So was Rafa there?
Was it 2019?
He might have.
Was it 2019? Let me have a look.
Go on, Tom.
2019 final. Who played in that final for the two teams? So it was. He did. He started that game.
Yeah, there you go.
He started that game. So he's won the Europa League as well. And he's won the Champions League. He's won everything. He's used to winning Europa League finals. That's some experience we could do with this season. Look, I think that it's a really smart bit of business. I think it's a desperate end to the window. Don't get me wrong. You can't beat around the bush that this is not what they wanted to do initially, and that's something we'll scrutinize in the summer if it happens again. But in terms of how we've reacted to not getting our priority targets, we've reacted well. We've moved on to a different player that is not. It's not. I don't want to call it panic. I think it's too far to call it a panic buy. Yeah. I think it's a contingency plan. It's a necessary buy, because I tell you what, the worst thing we could have done is just gone, oh, we can't get Caicedo, we'll wait till the summer. That would have been horrific. Yeah, if we'd have not signed anyone, it would have been bad. I can see the chat box is going mad about Balogun scoring a hat-trick. Again, great stuff going on with him. Maybe we'll talk about him.
He's doing really well.
But Jorginho, I think it's smarter than I initially gave it credit for, and I think smarter than what a lot of other people gave it credit for.
Tom, you make a good point in terms of the 24 hours does make a difference. It did to me. Don't get me wrong. Listen, you know me long enough, Tom, and people within the chat on my own channel and obviously here on Arsenal Lounge. You actually won't see me lose my head on the platform. You just won't. But yeah, I must admit, when I saw that tweet come through from Ornstein, I said, no, they just can't be serious. They just I know it's getting desperate measures called desperate, whatever the saying is, whatever, I can't remember. But
desperate times, desperate.
Yeah. So I thought, no, this can't be right. Then I started picking up more traction. I'm like, no, this actually really could happen, man. The Arsenal fans are going to lose it. A day like sort of like, because even I've seen a lot of ex-players, not Arsenal players, but just generally ex-football players and sort of journalists who are actually quite complimentary of the signing. And I think about it and I thought, well, you know what? Is one thing I've always said about Arsenal buying players within the league, you know, Jorginho's case being experienced in terms of age and been playing the league 5 years, is that we need to buy within the league a bit more. I think it was frowned upon with a lot of Arsenal fans. I don't know why, but I just thought it was. But sort of 24 hours later, listen, I'm actually coming on to what I was going to ask you actually, because obviously you had what's his name again, Daniel Charles.
Dan Charles,
yeah. Did you feel a bit more comfortable with the acquisition of Jorginho, having spoken to Daniel in the breakdown, or did you still kind of feel a mixture of emotions with the signing?
The reason why I got Dan on, because obviously I've worked with Dan for a while. He's he's moved on now, but he was the Chelsea fan brands writer, and I was the Arsenal fan brands writer at Football London and Reach. So I know that he's level-headed. I know he's objective, and I know that he won't be kind of throwing out shade to Arsenal like you will get with some Chelsea content creators. And I wanted to make sure that wasn't going to happen. So I was happy with what he said. You know me, I love my stats. I love how they apply context to situations. But Dan basically rubbished all my hard work because he turned around and said, you know, whilst these stats look great, at the end of the day, and he makes a really good point, because one thing stats do, especially when you do them per 90 or you're not looking at individual games, and stats are an average and there are a broad view of the player. And if you're a player that's hot and cold, like he explained Jorginho can be, you can have really good games and really poor games. And the stats average everything out, you know. So you're not necessarily looking at the stats and thinking, oh, so he's like this. You're looking at them and you're thinking, oh, he's doing this consistently every single game. You know, he's putting in 7 tackles. He's putting in however many interceptions. He's beating Partey in this area and this area. But in reality, Partey performs at a very high level every single game. Yeah. Jorginho has the ability to perform at Partey's level and even more in some games. He's been world class in some games I've watched of him. And he does that a few times. But then there's other games where he doesn't. Now, the big plus is that typically the games he does really well in is when the pressure's on. So like that Europa League final, really good. When they play Man City, when they play Man United, when they play Spurs, he steps up, you know. And I think maybe the benefit is that because we're in a title race, whereas where Chelsea are struggling, you know, really struggling and have been struggling a bit, like they're not the side that will win in the title under Conte, for instance. You know, with Jorginho, I think that the pressure's on in every game. Mikel Arteta had the demands he has on his team are just probably the highest of any team in the league. And I don't think Jorginho will be able to be allowed those poor games, you know, because he will be on him and saying, this is the expectation. I've wanted you for a long time. You know, I'm putting a lot of faith in you and you are going to deliver. So I'm excited to see what he does. And, you know, I think if there are people out there, and I'm sure there are, absolutely battering Arsenal for signing him, I hope he proves them wrong. And then I hope they're magnanimous enough to hold their hands up, like I will be if he's crap. So, you know.
And I will, yeah.
So, yeah, look, I think there is a lot of things to be said about this deal in a positive way, and I'm hoping that it comes to fruition.
Yeah, well said, Tom. And if that's the thing, like, Arteta likes this guy, man. And I don't know if you remember, Dom, I'm sure you remember the game and Arsenal fans in the chat. And it popped into my head actually before coming on to the doing the live stream is we played Chelsea at home in 2019. This is only Arteta's second game actually, and good game against Chelsea. We lost obviously, but I mean, remember that time Lampard made a tactical switch and he brought Jorginho onto the pitch. Tommy completely changed the game. He dominated the midfield. He won two. Good thing with Jorginho from what I've seen of him in his time in the league is the ability to good pass of the ball, composure, and very, very good positional sense as well. And there's going to be games, particularly we're going in now to the second half of the season where we might not be playing the free-flowing football and we might have to dig in a little bit deeper and retreat a further 10 yards or whatever. And, you know, the ball retention is so key, man, particularly in the center of the pitch, man. It's massive and he's very good at doing that. And as pointed out, Arteta has been a big fan of his for quite a long time. I know City were linked with him a few years ago, but their relationship with Napoli is not great. So he had not.
No, it's not.
Now, listen, he's an Arsenal player now, people. If you're throwing your toys out the pram, if you still want to do it, good luck to you. You're grown adults, you can do that. But he's our player now, and hopefully he's going to be more of an addition as opposed to looking at as a ex-Chelsea player who hasn't turned up in an Arsenal shirt again. But Tom, I haven't got you for much longer, but I'm gonna just the last thing to ask you. You sort of touched on it in terms of Caicedo and the likes of Rice. I think one thing that probably Arsenal fans look at is in terms of, I think you've kind of touched it in terms of Arsenal's number one priorities, targets. Is that a concern? Has that always been a concern in recent years, and probably going forward that we're not getting them?
Yeah, without a doubt. You know, we have to start being able to go for a player and get them. You know, Jules Koundé, Dusan Vlahovic, Sandro Martinez, and now Rafinha, and now of course Mudryk and Moises Caicedo. So it's Rice in the summer, as I've said. You've got to get him. You've got to get him because. And it's not even a case of like, you know, because we go back and forth about, and we'll all have opinions about whether Rice is the right player or not for Arsenal. But frankly, let's just remove that argument for a second. Whether or not you think that Declan Rice is the right person, Arsenal do right now. He's the priority. That's what we heard. That's what we're hearing. That's what we understand. And whether or not you want Rice, you want Arsenal to get this guy because we need to start getting our priority targets. You know, we also have a reason to really trust the recruitment anyway. So that should, you know, settle our nerves and our concerns a little bit. But the concern is that we have to get them. And it's as simple as that. It's not a long answer because it's just Edu has to get this done. And if he doesn't, then we need to start asking questions about that. Why aren't we doing it? Even when we're potentially either title winners or certainly title challengers for the forthcoming seasons. So, yeah.
No, well said. Listen, I said this before. Listen, Partey and Xhaka are not exactly over the hill. Let me get that right before people start losing their minds, right? They're the peak of their powers. But I think in terms of Arsenal moving forward, the likes of Rice, I don't know how old Rice is, Tom. Tell me quickly if you remember.
24, 25, yeah.
Yeah, perfect age. I love Declan Rice. Love him. Love his Instagram. Love him. I think he's a great player. But if we got him,
when he gets scared in a video, it always great. Yeah.
That's just brilliant. If we got him and Moises Caicedo, wow. I think that for me would be making a statement and would probably, if that didn't get Arsenal fans on board, we getting Rice would be brilliant. Don't get me wrong, that's statement signing. But to get both of them on board, Tom, wow. Listen, I'd find it hard for any Arsenal fan to complain if you purchase two players of that quality. Caicedo, yes, only 26 games in the Premier League, but like what I've seen. But listen, the transfer window is shut, people. Arsenal Loungers, 135 of you in the chat. If you haven't hit the like button already, what on earth are you waiting for, people? Get them algorithms up. Tom, I want to thank you for joining me today.
Pleasure.
It wasn't a planned stream, but I'm glad you said yes. So I appreciate it. People in the chat, fantastic interaction. Very, very, very peaceful in the chat, actually, considering what happened two days ago. But no, I appreciate it. So like I said, smash the like button, subscribe to Arsenal Lounge, people. And yes, we move. Look, transfer window's done. We move on. We got a league title to win, people. So I guess that'll get you guys going. But yes, that is AlbertJTV over and out on Arsenal Lounge. We'll see you soon, people.